Dodgers host the Rockies later on tonight, the weekend series with Colorado. We spoke with Dave Roberts yesterday. This is prior to yesterday's game. We reached out because I said to Fritzy, I think that Shohei will break this record, join the 50-50 club over the weekend, and we wanted to talk to Dave Roberts and get that opportunity. So he joined us prior to the game with Miami yesterday, and the first thing I ask is, how much credit do you take for Shohei Ohtani's season?
Zero. He is, he is one of one. It's been fun to have a front row seat watching what he does each night.
If I told you in March that he was approaching a 50-50 season, you would have said what?
Very unlikely, but wouldn't be shocked.
But he has this, what were you told after the procedure?
I was told that he was just going to DH, and the plan was to rehab him on the pitching side, the arm, to get him ready for 2025, but count on him as a full-time hitter.
Where does he stand in his progress of pitching?
He is throwing active, complete bullpens as far as using his pitch mix, but not facing hitters yet. So he's still a ways away from what I see being in a competitive game.
There's no possibility that he's pitching in the postseason?
You know, I think that, I guess I left the door open, and I think that with Shohei, I've learned that nothing is impossible. But I still feel that the progression is still a long ways away from being in a major league game. But I think that it's okay to leave that door just slightly cracked.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Given the pitching staff, the state of your starting pitching, you know, you kind of run that risk of can we speed it up a little bit, or can you take a chance maybe sooner than you had thought with using him?
I don't think so, and certainly with the starting staff injuries that we've accrued throughout this season, thinking of him as a starter to give us any length, there's a 0% chance of that happening.
Talking to Dave Roberts, Dodger manager, how would you describe this season? If somebody didn't know what the Dodgers had done, only saw your record, how would you sum it up?
Challenging. I think is a very fair word.
You have before guaranteed a World Series.
God, you just never let that lie, huh? And I love the way it's such a biased take. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
But,
well done.
So that leads me to, how do you feel about your team this year?
I like our team. It's certainly with the potential roster, it's not the talent how we envisioned it, and I think that any team that's contending for the World Series this year probably could say the same thing. And I do know that with baseball, it's not always the most talented team, that wins the World Series. And I think for our club, Dan, and I say this is. Talent is the floor for our ball club, which we certainly still have a lot of talent, and our fight is going to be the ceiling. So I expect our ceiling to be significantly raised this postseason.
I talked to Jeff Passan of ESPN yesterday. I said, how many teams could win the World Series? Take a guess how many teams he said.
Every team that gets an invite to the postseason.
That's exactly what he said. He said 12 teams. Do you think it's that wide open?
I do. I do, because I think that all 12 teams that are going to get in, I think that have some strengths clearly, and then have some clear flaws, and then so I think with that it just comes down to which team is playing the best. And I know everyone says it every year, but when you have 12 different participants, there's a lot of variables. And so Yeah, so I agree with Jeff.
Best team you faced this year?
That's a good question. I think it's interesting is I could say the Cubs. They every time we play them, they seem like they're just kick our butts and they're playing the best. But I think at one point I thought the Phillies weren't going to lose a game this year. I thought we fortunately caught the Indians at the right time. The Brewers have obviously had a great season. I think probably the best team that we've played this year is probably the Padres.
Okay. Yeah, certainly second half of the season, they've been great. I was curious, go back to the Phillies. Can you ever remember a player who was like Kyle Schwarber?
No. He's certainly a three, what do they call, three potential outcomes or whatever type of hitter as far as the hit, the walk, and then the homer, the walk, and the strikeout.
Yeah.
But I just love this guy's grit. He's very tough. I think that, you see this guy and you can clearly see that his teammates kind of take his personality and even with the WBC, I've talked to some players and they say he was kind of the guy that was like the heart and soul of that Team USA.
But to go up there and homer, that first at bat, that has to be so demoralizing when you're the opposing manager or pitcher.
It is, because I think that, and that's why we have Shohei hitting in the one, because pitchers want to get into the game and they want to throw that heater for a strike. But a guy like Schwarber can make it 1-0 pretty quickly. And when he's in the batter's box like Shohei, they're already in scoring position. Pitchers are like hitters and they have egos. They don't want to throw a first pitch slider or a breaking ball. But if you don't, you throw it over the plate, it's going to be damage.
I was wondering about this since you had one of the more famous stolen bases in the history of baseball. Have you helped or how have you helped Shohei with stealing bases?
You know what? I actually, Dan, I haven't. I've left that to Shohei and Clayton McCullough. And they do a great job studying. And it started in spring training with Shohei working on his explosiveness, his jumps, and the way he studies pitchers' tendencies tells. It's really remarkable. It really is. And I will say this, is that, there was a point, I think sometime in May, where I really saw Shohei as a base stealer and not just an athletic, fast baseball player that outruns the baseball. Because in years past, his stolen base percentage was really pedestrian. But this year it's very efficient.
Yeah, but see, that's what I wondered with injuries, coming off a procedure, surgery, and then allowing him to run as much as he's been running. I was surprised at that.
Yeah, but he doesn't dive, he slides, he uses legs. So you're talking about the right elbow, and I just don't think that there's any real risk with the stolen bases. And I do think that it's thought out in the sense that this is the only year that he expects to not pitch as well. So that's why I think he's using his legs a lot more and just a more dynamic hitter.
Any chance that Mookie Betts plays all 9 positions in a game?
I will guarantee, Dan, there's no chance that he plays all 9 positions in a game.
How about for fun one day?
There's no chance. I see him behind the plate. That ain't going to happen. and Mookie might fight me if I ask him.
All right, 8 positions. Could you see Mookie playing 8 positions?
Could I see him playing 8 positions in a game? You know what? There's a possibility.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
I think that there's a possibility of that. We'll see if we can make that happen.
Well, hey, good luck with Colorado. Thanks for joining us. Always great to talk to you.
All right, DP, take care.
That's Dave Roberts. We talked to him yesterday prior to the game. And so in case you're wondering that he didn't react to Shohei, what he did yesterday, we talked to him yesterday right after the show ended and talked about this season in totality. But I was surprised that he left open the opportunity of maybe Shohei pitching in the postseason.